Hi, this is Susan Odell. Welcome to the Odell Kitchen. We're talking mushrooms, the kind that you can use, that you use in your cooking on a regular basis. There are wild mushrooms out there, and some people spend hours foraging for wild mushrooms, but you really have to know what to look for. So be careful out there if you're going to find wild mushrooms, and go with someone who can teach you exactly what to look for. I'm going to teach you what to look for in the grocery store. First of all, we've got our white mushrooms. Now, most mushrooms that you see in the store are cultivated or farmed. The typical varieties are the white mushrooms and these little brown crimini mushrooms. This is called a button mushroom. Button relates to its size. So this is quite large for a button mushroom, although it still tastes the same. This is a portabello mushroom, and a portabello mushroom is just a crimini mushroom all grown up. The crimini, or the brown mushrooms, have a little more flavor than the white variety, a little bit earthier, but you can use them pretty much interchangeably in your recipes. The other mushrooms that I like to find in the grocery store and that are common are dried mushrooms. Now, wild mushrooms you can find when they're in season. You might find shiitake or lobsters or even porcini sometimes if you're lucky. But they're expensive and they're hard to find, and again, the season is pretty short. So look for some dried varieties, and these are really good to keep in your pantry. They last for 6 to 12 months if you keep them in a cool, dark place. You can just rehydrate them in hot water, which I'm doing, and we'll have a look at in a minute, and they add great flavor to soups and all kinds of dishes. You just need to make sure they get nice and soft before you put them in your dish. Now let's look at cleaning the mushrooms. Mushrooms will often have a little bit of dirt attached to them, and you don't really want that in your food. So the best way to get rid of it is to either use a damp paper towel and wipe the mushroom down, or use a little soft brush. This was actually made for the purpose of cleaning mushrooms. Just get the brush slightly damp and just brush the dirt right off. Just like that. If you soak mushrooms in water, they absorb the water because they're like little sponges and they're made up of mostly water already, and they become mushy when you cook them. So be gentle when you clean them, and just a slight damp brush does the trick. So to prepare the mushrooms for cooking, you probably want to either slice them, quarter them, maybe you'll use them whole if they're really small. But let's have a look at some of the techniques for trimming the mushrooms. So mushrooms will always have a slightly dried bit on the end of the stem. You don't necessarily have to remove the whole stem. You can just trim that end off and get a nice flat mushroom. That way you've got a fresh cut on the bottom. This is a fairly good sized button mushroom, so if I were going to use this for cooking, I'd probably want to quarter it. The very small ones you can use whole. That gives you a nice mushroom bite when you bite into your dish. If your stock is very woody and hard and getting dried out, just remove it by wiggling it around a little bit and it pops right out if you don't want that, or if you want to stuff the mushroom for a nice appetizer. To slice the mushroom, just lay it flat on your counter and use your knife, use the back of your knuckles and just slice along depending on how thick you want your slices. Use your fingers as the guide and you've got a beautiful sliced mushroom. Finally, to chop a mushroom, I'm going to take the stem off again. I'm going to slice it just like I did before. Then I'm going to turn my slices sideways and run my knife through again, and I'll get a nice finely chopped mushroom, just like that. These are 3 really good ways to use your mushrooms, and this is the most common ways that it'll be called for in a recipe. Now, if you have dried mushrooms, remember you need to reconstitute them before you use them. And by that, I just mean soak them in some hot water and get them nice and pliable again. Then you can just chop them however you need them for your dish, and you're ready to go. Dried mushrooms have a much more concentrated flavor, so if you're using them in lieu of fresh mushrooms, you can use a little bit less. Mushrooms add a lot of great flavor to savory dishes, so I know you're going to want to use them in your cooking. When you buy them, look for mushrooms that have a nice smooth cap. They don't have any dark blemishes or aren't mushy. That probably means they're past their prime. Keep them in your refrigerator on a tray if you can, with just a damp paper towel over the top. They really need that cool air circulating around them to keep them fresh. They should last for a good 3 or 4 days in the refrigerator. Bon appetit. Enjoy your mushrooms, learn how to prep them, and should I do that again?
Yeah.